Here's Barnaby Joyce speaking.
Totemic as this, to make sure that we can go back to our electorates and say, these were the concerns you conveyed to us, and this was the valid attempt we put towards trying to make sure that those concerns were dealt with. And this was the path we followed, and this was the outcome that we arrived at. Now, you basically go to the end of that equation, and that is the outcome we arrive at. And we haven't arrived at a end point of this, and I'm only too happy to comment after that process concludes. Sorry? Well, you know, what has precedence? The precedence is making sure you respect those who sent you to this place. There's nothing that annoys people more than say, you know, you go down there and you become a different person. We conveyed to you as branch members, as people on the street, as people when you walk into the local pub, we conveyed to you concerns that we had. And, you know, we didn't see you even entertaining how you deliberate on them. Now, you know, that's not good. That's not what politics is about. When you go down there, you're not a squire. When you go down there, you're a servant of us. And we expect to see, you know, respect a servant, but a servant of us nonetheless. And we expect to see you do your duty. And that's what the Nationals are doing.
I know you said you don't think much more shouldn't be pushed into a corner, but is Sunday really the last possible chance for the Nats to make a call on this? So the decision has to be made this week, given Glasgow's next week. So the Prime Minister can't really go with that.
Well, you know, well, he can actually, and that's a prerogative of the Prime Minister. And once more, we're not going to start trying to even mimic, you know, bullying the Prime Minister or coercing the Prime Minister. He has his own mandate and he has his own capacity, and that is absolutely and utterly his own right, you know, quite evidently. And what we have to do is do our job. And we have a coalition, and it's the best thing for our nation that we do. But it is not chained with a padlock. It is the agreed position of views. One overwhelmingly a capital city urban view with regional seats as well, no doubt about that. But our views is exclusively regional. We don't know capital city seats that we have to politically contend with. And there is, most definitely, within the closer you get to the centre of the capital city, a different political view. And we respect that. Their view is premised on predominantly white-collar jobs and low-energy requirements, whilst ours in regional areas are predominantly blue-collar jobs that are energy-intensive. So you would expect to be a different set of eyes that would go over these deals, and I hope people respect that. And you know, even in the sort of the fourth estate narrative, it's one of how dare you disagree, and that doesn't help. That just once more says, well, how arrogant could you be?
Mr. Joyce, you haven't signalled any plans to legislate this plan. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you want to legislate it so that you can ensure the regions are protected, even if you don't win the next election? Because Labor could come in and change it if they wanted to.
Well, this is another thing. I mean, the Labor Party has to say what they're going to do for regions. The only way the Labor Party could have any chance of success in the next election is to win regional seats. And what we have now conveyed to regional people is they've said they're going to get there, they have said they're going to legislate it, but they haven't told any of these people about what happens to their jobs, what happens to the costs.
If you legislate.
Well, that would... So let's finishing it. So the Labor Party, because have clearly got to tell regional people about what their plan is and how it works out and what its cost is for them. Otherwise, I really don't give them much chance in the election because regional people will say, well, the Graindler plan doesn't work for Gladstone. The Graindler plan doesn't work for the Hunter Valley or Townsville. And you just take the Labor Party, you just take our vote for granted. You've never had meetings trying to deal with this. You just took our position for granted and expect us sort of, you know, mute-like to go out and vote for you. Well, the people in regional areas won't, and therefore the Labor Party have no chance. They're almost signing, they're signing the epitaph for the next election, which they lose because they'll go so well in the inner suburbs. They will go brilliantly, and they'll lose regional seats. I've been around long enough to tell you that's what's going to happen. Now, to the substance of your question, which was about would we legislate? Well, let's get to the end of this process. Let's not jump ahead and start second-guessing what might be the case. Let's get to the end of the process, and I'm trying my very best to be respectful in that process and to not start litigating it from, you know, in front of a camera.
But you're not ruling it out?
But and look, as I said, that's also partial litigation because you start going into the cut and dice of ruling out and ruling in, and that's, you know, I've been around for a little while.
It sounds like from your language this morning that you essentially believe this is a fait accompli, that one way or another, Morrison's going to Glasgow, whether you agree to it or not, he's going to say it. Is that a fair assessment of where you believe this is at?
Well, I'm not, as I said, I'm not here to read the Prime Minister's mind. And you know, my job is to represent the people that I was sent here to represent, as is all my colleagues. You know, the member for Flynn, Ken O'Dowd, is there to represent his people. As the member for Gippsland, Darren Chester, is there to represent his people. As the member for Rockhampton, or Capricornia, Michelle Landry is there to represent her people, and as is Pat Conahan, the member for Cowper. That's what we are sent to do.
Sure, but
And that,
fait accompli in your opinion?
well, what I'm saying is, I'm here to make sure that I give absolute respect and impartiality to the views of the Nationals room, and as such, having the incredible honour to lead them, to collate those views into a pertinent policy, and what other people do with it is really up to them. But I know my job, and I'm going to stick to my job.
Just quickly, Adam Farmington again. Is there a sense of urgency in the National Party room on this at all?
Yeah. We are trying to be as proactive as possible, and not just stymie a process. We understand, that we understand the necessity of this, but we didn't determine the time frame. We didn't determine the time of deliberation, and so we have to, with the time we have, which is rather truncated, to come to a conclusion on what is probably one of the most totemic decisions this nation will make. And no matter which way it goes, you would expect there to be a proper oversight and deliberation on behalf of the members of Parliament. That is more important than the deliberations of myself.